The grand hall of Carnegie fell into a stunned, breathless silence. Under the glow of crystal chandeliers that had witnessed a century of musical brilliance, something impossible was unfolding. The polished marble floors reflected the shocked faces of New York's elite senators, CEOs, old money families draped in diamonds and designer gowns, all frozen in their velvet seats. At center stage, beneath the spotlight, sat a man who had no business being there. His clothes were tattered and stained, his jacket held together with safety pins. His weathered hands, scarred and trembling, rested on the keys of a Steinway concert grand, worth more than most people's homes. His face, worn, weathered, marked by years of sleeping on concrete, was tilted upward, eyes closed, as if listening to something only he could hear. "Security!" Maestro Vincent Castellano's voice cut through the silence like a knife. His face was crimson with rage, his perfectly tailored tuxedo shaking as he pointed a conductor's baton at the intruder. "Get this. This street trash away from my piano now!" The audience gasped. Some leaned forward. Others looked away in embarrassment. But the man at the piano didn't move. Sir, a security guard approached cautiously. "You need to leave." And then, before anyone could stop him, the homeless man's fingers touched the keys. What happened next would be talked about for years. The first notes floated into the air like whispered prayers, soft, delicate, impossibly precise. Then the music began to build, rising like a wave, filling every corner of the historic hall. His hands moved across the keyboard with a grace that defied his appearance, each note perfectly placed, each phrase telling a story of heartbreak and hope. People's jaws dropped. Eyes widened in disbelief. Maestro Castellano stood frozen, his face draining of color. The man was playing Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, one of the most technically demanding pieces in classical repertoire, from memory, with his eyes closed, as if he'd been born to do nothing else. But this story didn't begin in that moment of impossible beauty. This story began 4 months earlier in a very different place, where a man named Isaiah Wright was simply trying to survive one more cold Brooklyn night. Isaiah Wright lived under the Williamsburg Bridge, not near it, not around it, under it, in the space where concrete met earth, where the city's forgotten gathered around barrel fires and shared cigarettes and stories nobody wanted to hear. At 47 years old, Isaiah's body carried the weight of a much older man. His dark skin, once smooth and healthy, was now weathered by 3 years of sleeping rough. His hair, gone gray at the temples, was matted and unkempt. His hands, those extraordinary hands, were calloused and scarred from digging through dumpsters, from fights over sleeping spots, from the 1,000 small violences of life on the streets. Every morning, he woke to the rumble of traffic overhead. Every day, he pushed a shopping cart full of collected cans through Brooklyn's streets, invisible to the thousands who passed him by. Every evening, he stood in line at St. Mary's shelter, hoping there might be a hot meal, a clean bed, maybe a shower if he was lucky. Most people saw him and looked away. Most people crossed the street when they saw him coming. Most people would never know that the homeless man pushing that cart, wearing those stained clothes, had once performed at the Kennedy Center, that he'd once played for presidents and princes, that his name had once appeared on billboards and concert programs across 3 continents. But Isaiah remembered. Oh God, how he remembered. Every night, when the streets finally quieted and the city settled into its restless sleep, Isaiah would wait. He'd wait until the drunks were passed out, until the other homeless had found their corners, until the police had finished their rounds. And then, moving like a ghost through empty streets, he would make his way to an abandoned church on the edge of Bushwick. The Church of the Blessed Redeemer had been condemned for 5 years. Its windows were boarded up, its doors chained shut. But Isaiah had found a way in through a broken basement window, and inside, covered in dust and surrounded by broken pews and graffiti-covered walls, sat an old upright piano. It was missing several keys. The strings were out of tune, the pedals stuck, the wood was warped and cracked. But when Isaiah sat on that wobbling bench and placed his fingers on those yellowed keys, something magical happened. In that abandoned church in the dead of night, with no audience but rats and memories, Isaiah Wright would play. He'd play Chopin nocturnes that made the darkness feel less heavy. He'd play Beethoven sonatas that shook the dust from the rafters. He'd play jazz improvisations that danced through the empty space, like spirits of joy and sorrow intertwined. And for those few hours, he wasn't a homeless man. He was a musician again. He was himself again. The piano didn't care that his clothes were dirty. The music didn't judge him for the smell of the streets on his skin. The keys responded to his touch the same way they always had, with honest, pure, beautiful sound. But every morning when dawn crept through the boarded windows, Isaiah would slip back out into the world, back to invisibility, back to being nobody, back to being the man people crossed the street to avoid. Isaiah Wright hadn't always been nobody. There was a time when his name meant something. Born in 1977 in Newark, New Jersey, Isaiah had been what they called a prodigy. His mother, a church pianist, had noticed something special when he was 3 years old. The way he could hear a hymn once and play it back perfectly, his tiny fingers finding notes he'd never been taught. By age 7, he was performing at community centers. By 10, he'd won every youth competition in the tri-state area. By 15, he had a full scholarship to Juilliard, the most prestigious music school in the world. His teachers said he had a gift that came along once in a generation. His playing wasn't just technical perfection, though God knows he had that. It was something deeper, something that couldn't be taught. When Isaiah played, people felt something. They were moved, transformed. The music reached into their chests and touched something raw and true. By his mid-20s, Isaiah was on the fast track to legendary status. He'd signed with a major classical music label. He performed at Carnegie Hall, the Royal Albert Hall in London, the Sydney Opera House. His recording of the Goldberg Variations was nominated for a Grammy. Critics called him the most important classical pianist of his generation and a once-in-a-lifetime talent. But Isaiah's greatest achievement wasn't the awards or the accolades. It was Eleanor. He'd met her at Tanglewood during a summer music festival in the Massachusetts countryside. She was a cellist, brilliant, beautiful, with dark curls and a laugh that could light up a room. They'd fallen in love over late-night rehearsals and stolen kisses between movements. They'd married in a small ceremony at her parents' vineyard in Napa, with a string quartet playing Pachelbel as she walked down the aisle. 2 years later, their daughter Maya was born. Isaiah still remembered holding her for the first time, this impossibly tiny person with Eleanor's eyes and his mother's nose. He remembered playing lullabies on the piano while Eleanor rocked her to sleep. He remembered Maya's first word wasn't mama or dada. It was piano pointing at the instrument that dominated their Brooklyn brownstone. Those were the golden years. Isaiah would practice during the day while Maya played with her toys beneath the piano, giggling when he'd play funny notes just for her. Eleanor would come home from teaching at the conservatory, and they'd make dinner together while Maya told them about her day at preschool. On weekends, they'd take the subway to Central Park, where Isaiah would teach Maya to identify bird songs and Eleanor would point out cloud shapes. They were happy. They were so impossibly perfectly happy. And then, one rainy October night in 2008, everything ended. They were driving back from a concert in Boston. Isaiah had just performed Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue with the Boston Symphony Orchestra. It had been a triumph, 3 standing ovations, flowers thrown onto the stage, an encore that brought the audience to tears. Eleanor sat in the passenger seat, her hand resting on Isaiah's thigh, humming the melody he'd just performed. In the back seat, 8-year-old Maya was asleep, her head resting against a stuffed elephant she refused to go anywhere without. It was just past midnight. The Massachusetts Turnpike was quiet. A light rain made the highway glisten under the streetlights. Isaiah never saw the truck. The driver, later found to have 3 times the legal alcohol limit in his blood, ran a red light at the Route 9 interchange. His 18-wheeler slammed into the passenger side of Isaiah's sedan at 70 miles per hour. The world exploded into metal and glass and screaming. Isaiah woke up 3 days later in Massachusetts General Hospital. His head was wrapped in bandages. His left arm was in a cast. Everything hurt a pain so deep and complete that it felt like his bones were made of broken glass. Mr. Wright, the doctor, said gently, pulling up a chair beside his bed. "You were in an accident. You're at Mass General. You're safe now." Eleanor, Isaiah's voice was barely a whisper. "Maya." "Where?" The doctor's expression told him everything before the words came out. Eleanor had died on impact. The truck had hit her side of the car directly. She was gone before the ambulance arrived, they told him later. She hadn't suffered. It was quick. Maya had held on longer. She'd made it to the hospital, survived 2 surgeries. But her injuries were too severe. Internal bleeding they couldn't stop. She died holding a nurse's hand, asking for her daddy, not understanding why he wouldn't come. Isaiah remembered screaming. He remembered trying to tear the IV from his arm, trying to get out of bed, he didn't know what. Go back in time. Wake up from this nightmare. Die himself. They sedated him. For 2 weeks he existed in a haze of grief and morphine. The funerals happened without him. He was still too injured to attend. His mother made the arrangements, buried his wife and daughter side by side in a cemetery in New Jersey that Isaiah would never visit because he couldn't bear to see their names carved in stone. When he was finally released from the hospital, Isaiah learned the full extent of his injuries. The head trauma had caused damage to his optical nerves. His vision, which had been perfect, was now compromised. Blurred. Spotty. The doctors said it would get worse over time, progressive optic neuropathy, they called it. Within 5 to 10 years, they estimated he'd be completely blind. They gave him special glasses, talked about low vision rehabilitation, suggested he apply for disability benefits. Isaiah threw the glasses in the trash. He went back to his Brooklyn brownstone, the home he'd shared with Eleanor and Maya, and found he couldn't breathe inside those walls. Every room held memories that crushed him. Maya's drawings still on the refrigerator, Eleanor's cello in the corner, the piano where they'd sung Christmas carols just 10 months before. He lasted 3 days before he walked out and never went back. His agent called, his manager called, the record label called, Carnegie Hall called, he had concerts scheduled, commitments, contracts. Isaiah didn't answer. He couldn't imagine sitting at a piano ever again. Music had been everything to him. His language, his purpose, his soul. But music had been tied to Eleanor and Maya, woven into every memory of happiness he had. To play now would be to remember, and to remember was to die. So he simply stopped. He stopped answering calls, stopped paying bills, stopped eating, stopped sleeping, stopped existing as a functioning human being. Within 6 months, he'd lost the brownstone to foreclosure, lost his savings to medical bills and lawyer fees from the lawsuit against the trucking company, a lawsuit that went nowhere because the driver had no assets, and the company declared bankruptcy. Isaiah moved from his brownstone to a studio apartment. From the studio to a motel. From the motel to a shelter. From the shelter to a cardboard box under a bridge. And the whole time, his vision got worse. Edges became fuzzy, colors faded, faces became unrecognizable. The world turned into shapes and shadows. 3 years later, Isaiah Wright, former Prodigy Grammy nominee, internationally acclaimed concert pianist, was just another homeless man that people stepped over on their way to somewhere important. Another invisible soul in a city full of them. Another tragedy that nobody wanted to hear about. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late September when Isaiah pushed his shopping cart past the Steinway & Sons showroom on 57th Street. He hadn't meant to stop. He'd been on his way to a soup kitchen on 9th Avenue, hurrying to beat the lunch rush. But something made him pause outside those massive glass windows. Inside, displayed like pieces of art in a gallery, stood a dozen grand pianos. Even from the sidewalk, even with his failing vision, Isaiah could see them sleek black, perfect. Each one worth more money than most people earned in a year. He shouldn't have gone inside. God, he knew he shouldn't have. But his feet moved before his brain could stop them. Before he knew it, he was through the door, standing in that temple of wood and wire and ivory, breathing in the smell of polish and possibility. The showroom was massive, all marble floors and soaring ceilings. Soft classical music played from hidden speakers. Everything was pristine, elegant, expensive. Isaiah stood just inside the entrance, suddenly aware of how he must look. His reflection in a nearby mirror showed him the truth-matted hair-stained clothes, 3-day stubble, the kind of dirty that doesn't wash off easily. He smelled like the street's sweat and garbage and defeat. He should have left immediately. But then he saw it. In the center of the showroom, under a spotlight, sat the most beautiful piano Isaiah had ever seen. A Steinway Model D concert, grand 9 feet of gleaming ebony perfection. The kind of instrument that only exists in the world's greatest concert halls. The kind of piano Isaiah used to play before the world ended. His feet carried him toward it like a man in a trance. "Sir," a voice called out, sharp, suspicious. A security guard stepped into his path. "You can't be in here." "I just want to look." Isaiah's voice was hoarse from disuse. "This isn't a place to look. This is a place of business. You need to leave." But Isaiah wasn't listening anymore. He'd reached the piano. His hand, that scarred, calloused hand, reached out and gently touched the glossy surface of the lid. It was cool beneath his fingers. Smooth, perfect. "Sir, I said you need to. Is there a problem here?" The new voice was commanding, accented, dripping with authority and irritation. Isaiah turned to see a man approaching from the back office. 60-ish, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, in a 3-piece suit that probably cost more than a car. His face was angular, aristocratic, the kind of face that had never known a day of hardship. Maestro Vincent Castellano. Isaiah didn't recognize him. His vision wasn't good enough to make out details anymore, and it had been years since he'd paid attention to the classical music world. But everyone in the showroom seemed to straighten up when the man appeared, seemed to defer to him with an almost frightened respect. Maestro, the security guard, said quickly, "I was just escorting this." Individual out. This individual Castellano's eyes raked over Isaiah with open disgust is contaminating the showroom with his presence. I'm here to select a piano for our upcoming benefit concert, and I have to breathe the same air as this. Isaiah felt something flicker in his chest. Not anger. He was too worn down for anger. Just sadness. Familiar sadness. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I'll go. You absolutely will. Castellano stepped closer, and Isaiah could smell expensive cologne. Do you have any idea what these instruments cost? What this showroom represents? This is Steinway & Sons, the finest piano maker in the world. We don't allow vagrants to simply wander in off the street and put their filthy hands on instruments that kings and presidents have played. I wasn't going to, you already did. Castellano pointed at the piano's surface where Isaiah's fingerprints had left smudges on the perfect polish. You've touched it with your disgusting. He turned to the showroom manager, who'd appeared looking panicked. Is this how you run this establishment? Allowing street trash to fondle million-dollar instruments. Maestro Castellano, I sincerely apologize. Get him out, now, and get someone to sterilize that piano before I even consider purchasing it for Carnegie Hall. The security guard grabbed Isaiah's arm, not gently. And that's when something inside Isaiah broke. Not snapped, not exploded, just cracked, like old wood under too much pressure. I know that piano, Isaiah heard himself say. Everyone froze. I'm sorry. Castellano turned back to him, eyebrows raised in mocking surprise. That piano, Model D, serial number would be on the inside of the lid, but I'm guessing from the finish and the leg design that it's a 2005 or 2006 Hamburg. Probably has a warmer tone than the New York Steinways. The action would be responsive. Hamburg pianos always are. This one probably has a singing quality in the upper register that makes it perfect for Chopin or Debussy. The showroom had gone completely silent. Castellano stared at him. And how he said slowly would a homeless derelict know anything about Steinway pianos, Isaiah met his eyes, or tried to. His vision was too blurred to make out the man's expression clearly. Because I used to play them. You played them. Yes. A laugh. Cold and cruel. You expect me to believe that you, looking like something I'd scrape off my shoe, have ever touched a concert grand, that you've ever been within 100 feet of a real piano. I've played Carnegie Hall 17 times, Isaiah said quietly. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Castellano laughed. Really laughed, a harsh barking sound that echoed off the marble floors. Oh, this is rich. This is absolutely priceless. He turned to the gathered staff, who were watching with wide eyes. Gentlemen, ladies, we are apparently in the presence of greatness. This man who clearly hasn't bathed in weeks, who smells like a garbage heap, who probably doesn't know Rachmaninoff from Chopsticks claims to have performed at Carnegie Hall. A few nervous laughs from the staff. What's your name? Castellano demanded. Isaiah hesitated. He hadn't said his own name out loud in he couldn't remember how long. Isaiah, he finally whispered. Isaiah Wright. He watched Castellano's face, searching for any flicker of recognition. Isaiah Wright had been famous once. Surely someone in the classical music world would remember, "Never heard of you." Castellano's words were dismissive, final. And I know every pianist worth knowing. You're a liar as well as a vagrant. How pathetic. He turned to the security guard. Remove him. If he resists, call the police. I want him charged with trespassing. As the guard's hand tightened on his arm as Isaiah was physically dragged toward the door, something happened. A young woman stepped forward from behind the sales counter. She was in her 20s, with red hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing the standard Steinway showroom uniform. Her name tag read Ruby, "Wait," she said. Everyone turned to look at her. "Maestro Castellano. I think I've heard that name before. Isaiah Wright." She pulled out her phone, fingers flying across the screen. "I'm a music student at Manhattan School of Music, and we studied—" Oh my God. She held up her phone, showing a Wikipedia page. Isaiah Wright, Juilliard graduate, Grammy-nominated recording artist, performed at Carnegie Hall, Kennedy Center, Royal Albert Hall. Oh my God, it's really you. The showroom went deadly quiet. Isaiah couldn't see the screen. His vision was too poor. But he could see Ruby's face, the shock and awe written there. Castellano snatched the phone from her hand. He stared at it for a long moment. His face went through several expressions: disbelief, confusion, and finally something harder to read. This can't be the same person. He looked up at Isaiah. "This article is about a concert pianist who performed 15 years ago. The picture," he squinted at the phone. "It doesn't even look like—" "I was different then," Isaiah said softly. "I had a family, a home, a life." The silence stretched out. Castellano looked at Isaiah for a long moment. Something flickered in his expression, not sympathy exactly, but perhaps a momentary recognition that he might have made an error. But then his face hardened again. "Even if you once were somebody," he said coldly, "you certainly aren't anymore. Whatever talent you might have possessed is long gone, buried under years of this." He gestured at Isaiah's appearance with disdain. "Talent requires discipline, practice, standards. You clearly have none of those things. You're a cautionary tale at best, a has-been who threw everything away." He handed the phone back to Ruby without looking at her. "Get him out of my sight!" As Isaiah was escorted to the door, Ruby's voice followed him. "Mr. Wright." "Wait!" She came running over, fumbling in her pocket. She pressed something into his hand, a business card and 2 $20 bills. "The Maestro is conducting a charity gala benefit concert at Carnegie Hall this Friday," she whispered urgently. "It's a fundraiser for homeless services, ironically. The first hour is a VIP reception, but after that, doors open to the public. If you can get there, maybe what Isaiah asked. Maybe you could show him he's wrong about you." Isaiah looked down at the card in his hand. His vision was too blurred to read it, but he could feel the embossed lettering under his fingers. "I don't perform anymore," he said. "But you could. You should." Ruby glanced back nervously. Castellano was watching them with narrowed eyes. That man in there, Maestro Castellano, he's one of the most powerful people in classical music. He decides who gets opportunities and who doesn't. He's ruined careers with one bad review. But he's also known for being, well, for being a snob. For judging people on appearance and status rather than talent. So someone needs to remind him that music doesn't care about any of that. Music just is. She squeezed his hand. "Friday night, Carnegie Hall. Please think about it." Then she was gone, hurrying back inside before she could get in trouble. Isaiah stood on the sidewalk holding the card and the money as the door closed behind him. Through the window, he could see Castellano examining the piano, running his hand over the exact spot where Isaiah had touched it, as if checking for contamination. Isaiah turned and walked away. But something had changed. For the first time in 3 years, something other than numbness stirred in his chest. Isaiah didn't sleep that night. He lay on his piece of cardboard under the Williamsburg Bridge, staring up at the underside of steel and concrete, turning Ruby's business card over and over in his hands. Carnegie Hall. God, how many times had he performed there? 15, 20. He'd lost count. He'd taken that stage for granted, the way young people take everything for granted, assuming it would always be there, that there would always be another concert, another opportunity, another chance. His fingers ached. Not from arthritis or injury, but from memory. They remembered what it felt like to fly across a keyboard, to pull music out of wood and wire, to transform silence into something beautiful. When was the last time he'd really played not the broken upright in the abandoned church that was practice muscle memory killing time? He meant really played, performed, put his soul into the music and felt it come alive. 3 years. 3 years since he'd played for anyone but himself and the ghosts. Could he even do it anymore? The technical skill was still there. He practiced enough to know that. His fingers still remembered the patterns the muscle memory carved so deep that even homelessness couldn't erase it. But playing for an audience was different. It required something more than just hitting the right notes. It required presence, confidence, the ability to bare your soul in front of hundreds of people and trust that they'd understand what you were trying to say. Did he still have that? Or had the streets taken it from him, along with everything else? Over the next 3 days, Isaiah couldn't stop thinking about it. He went through his usual routines, collecting cans, standing in line for meals, avoiding police, finding warm places to sleep. But his mind was elsewhere. He found himself at the abandoned church every night, staying later and later, playing harder pieces, testing himself. Rachmaninoff, Prokofiev, Scriabin. The pieces he used to perform when he wanted to show off, when he wanted audiences to understand that he wasn't just good, he was extraordinary. His hands still knew what to do. Even as his eyesight faded, even as the keys blurred into indistinct shapes, his fingers found their places by instinct and memory. He'd always played with his eyes closed anyway, even back in his glory days. He'd never needed to see the keys. He could feel them, sense them, know them, like he knew his own heartbeat. But the piano in the church was such a poor instrument. Half the keys stuck. The tone was tinny and thin. The pedals barely worked. What would it feel like to play a real piano again? A Steinway concert grand, perfectly tuned with action so responsive, it felt like an extension of your own body. What would it feel like to perform at Carnegie Hall one more time? On Friday morning, Isaiah used Ruby's $40 to go to a Goodwill. He bought the nicest clothes he could find. A button-down shirt that was only slightly worn, a pair of slacks that almost fit a jacket with just one broken button. In the Goodwill bathroom, he washed as best he could in the sink, scrubbing his hands and face until the skin was raw. He looked at himself in the cracked mirror. He still looked homeless. No amount of washing could hide the weathering, the gauntness, the look of someone who'd spent years surviving instead of living. But his hands were clean. That was something. That evening, as the sun set over Manhattan and the city lights began to sparkle, Isaiah made his way to 57th Street and 7th Avenue, to Carnegie Hall. The building rose before him like a cathedral, all red brick and arched windows glowing from within. People in evening gowns and tuxedos streamed through the entrance, laughing, chatting, sipping champagne from glasses they'd carried out from the VIP reception. Isaiah stood across the street, watching. This was insane. What was he doing? He couldn't just walk in there and demand to play. He'd be thrown out, arrested, humiliated. He should leave, go back to the bridge, forget this foolish fantasy. But his feet carried him forward, across the street, up the steps, through the doors. The moment he stepped inside, he was transported back in time. The lobby hadn't changed. Same marble floors, same ornate staircases, same gilded fixtures. Even the smell was the same perfume and anticipation, and the subtle scent of old wood and older money. How many times had he stood in this lobby in his prime, chatting with admirers and agents and fellow musicians? How many times had he taken those stairs to the dressing rooms, his heart pounding with pre-show nerves and excitement? "Excuse me, sir?" A hand on his shoulder. Isaiah turned to find a Carnegie Hall usher, an older black man in a red vest, looking at him with concern rather than suspicion. "Do you have a ticket?" Isaiah's throat was dry. "No, I was told doors were open to the public after the VIP reception." "They are." The usher studied him for a moment. "But the concert's about to start. You'll need to find a seat quickly." He pointed toward the doors to the main hall. Isaiah couldn't believe it. He'd expected to be thrown out immediately. Instead, "Thank you," he whispered. "No problem." The usher smiled. "Love of music doesn't require a tuxedo, right? Enjoy the show." Isaiah slipped through the doors into the hall itself. And there it was, the Stern Auditorium. 804 seats arranged in a horseshoe rising up to the ceiling in multiple balconies. The stage at the center bathed in warm light. The acoustics designed so perfectly that a whisper on stage could be heard in the back row. Most of the seats were filled with New York's elite, but there were empty spots in the upper balconies where the public admission tickets allowed seating. Isaiah climbed the stairs, his legs shaking from exertion or emotion. He wasn't sure. He found a seat in the rear of the second balcony, far from the stage, but with a clear view. On stage, an orchestra was assembling. Musicians in formal wear tuning their instruments, creating that familiar cacophony of preparation that always preceded a performance. And at the front, arms crossed, surveying his domain like a king, Maestro Vincent Castellano. Isaiah's heart hammered in his chest. What was he doing here? What did he think was going to happen? The lights dimmed. The audience quieted. Castellano raised his baton, and the concert began. They opened with Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, dramatic, powerful, impossible not to recognize. The orchestra played beautifully, Castellano's conducting precise and controlled. The music filled the hall, and despite everything, Isaiah felt his chest tighten with emotion. God, he'd missed this. Not just playing, but being surrounded by live music, feeling it in his bones, letting it wash over him like waves. The symphony ended to enthusiastic applause, then a violin concerto, then a soprano performing an aria from La Bohème that brought tears to Isaiah's eyes, partly because it was beautiful, partly because Eleanor had loved Puccini, had sung this same aria while cooking dinner, her voice filling their Brooklyn brownstone. During intermission, Isaiah stayed in his seat, while others filed out to the lobby for drinks and socializing. He couldn't afford anything, and he didn't want to draw attention to himself. He closed his eyes and remembered. The first time he'd performed here, he was 22 years old, making his Carnegie Hall debut with a program of Chopin Etudes. He'd been terrified, convinced he'd forget everything or freeze up or somehow fail. But the moment his fingers touched the keys, all fear had vanished. There had been only the music. The standing ovation afterward had lasted 7 minutes. 7 minutes of thunderous applause that made him feel like he could fly. Eleanor had been in the audience that night. It was one of their first dates. After the concert, she'd met him backstage with flowers and a kiss that tasted like champagne and promise. "You're going to change the world," she'd whispered. "I can feel it." Isaiah opened his eyes, blinking back tears. The audience was returning to their seats. The lights dimmed again. "Ladies and gentlemen," Castellano's voice rang out from the stage, amplified by the hall's perfect acoustics. For our final piece of the evening, we have something special. As you know, tonight's benefit concert supports the Manhattan Coalition for the Homeless, an organization doing vital work for our city's most vulnerable. Polite applause. Music has always been a universal language. Castellano continued. It transcends social barriers, speaks to the soul, regardless of status or circumstance. Tonight, we celebrate that truth. He smiled a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Now, we will perform Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2 in C minor, one of the most beloved works in the classical repertoire. Please welcome our soloist, the distinguished pianist, Robert Hammond. A man in his 30s walked onto the stage to polite applause. He sat at the Steinway, the same one from the showroom, Isaiah realized, the one Castellano had eventually purchased. The performance began. Hammond was technically proficient, no question about that. His fingers moved rapidly through the difficult passages, hitting all the right notes. The orchestra accompanied perfectly Castellano's conducting, giving clear direction. But something was missing. Isaiah could hear it even from the back of the balcony, even with his fading vision. The performance was correct, but cold. Technical, but soulless. Hammond was playing the notes, but he wasn't telling the story. Rachmaninoff had written this concerto during a deep depression after a period of creative drought and personal crisis. The music was supposed to express despair, giving way to hope, darkness struggling toward light. It was supposed to make you feel something raw and true. Hammond's version made it sound like a technical exercise. Around him, Isaiah could hear the audience responding with polite attention, but not real engagement. Some people were even checking their phones, the glow of screens visible in the darkness. The concerto ended. Respectful applause, but no standing ovation. No encore. Castellano looked pleased. He always liked being the star, and a soloist who didn't upstage him was preferable to one who did. "Thank you, Mr. Hammond," he said into the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes..." "Excuse me." The voice came from the audience. Everyone turned. Isaiah's heart stopped. He was on his feet, and somehow, without consciously deciding to, he just shouted. Every face in Carnegie Hall turned toward him. Castellano squinted up at the balcony, trying to see who had spoken. And before his courage could fail him, before reason could take over, Isaiah began making his way down the aisle. "Security." Castellano's voice was icy. "We have a disturbance." But Isaiah was already moving down the grand staircase from the balcony to the main floor, then down the center aisle toward the stage. People stared, whispered, drew back as he passed, as if poverty might be contagious. He could barely see their faces, but he could feel their judgment. "Sir, you need to stop right now." Two security guards were converging on him from the sides of the hall, but Isaiah didn't stop. He reached the stage and with effort pulled himself up onto the platform. Now he was standing in front of 800 people face to face with Maestro Castellano, breathing hard, his cleaned but still shabby clothes, a stark contrast to the elegant surroundings. Castellano's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, recognition, and finally fury. "You," he hissed. "The vagrant from the piano store. How did you even security remove this man immediately? Wait!" Isaiah held up his hands. His voice echoed through the hall. Carnegie's acoustics made sure everyone could hear. "Please, just wait. I don't know how you got in here." Castellano said, his voice sharp with anger and embarrassment at being interrupted. "But you are trespassing. This is a private benefit concert, and I have as much right to be here as anyone." Isaiah's voice was stronger now, fueled by something he hadn't felt in years, righteous anger. This concert is supposed to support the homeless. I am homeless. So, in a way, this concert is for me, isn't it? A ripple of murmurs through the audience. Castellano's face reddened. The purpose of this evening is this is not a platform for you cannot simply, I can play that piece better than your soloist. Silence. Complete, total silence. Isaiah hadn't planned to say it. The words just came out, 3 years of silence and frustration and loss, finally breaking free. I'm sorry. Castellano's voice was dangerously quiet. Rachmaninoff's second. I can play it better. Better than Hammond. Better than... He met Castellano's eyes, or tried to with his failing vision. Better than you've ever heard. The audience gasped. This was theater of the highest order, better than anything they'd paid to see. Castellano laughed, that same cold, cruel laugh from the piano store. This is unbelievable. This is... Do you have any idea who I am? I am Maestro Vincent Castellano. I have conducted at La Scala, the Met, the Royal Opera House. I have worked with Yo-Yo Ma Lang Lang Itzhak Perlman. I have forgotten more about music than you will ever know. And you, a homeless nobody who claims to have once been somebody, you dare to stand on my stage and tell me, then let me prove it. More murmurs. Some people in the audience were standing now, trying to get a better view. Let me sit at that piano and play. If I can't, if I'm as pathetic as you think, then have me arrested. Ban me from Carnegie Hall for life. Call the police. But if I can, Isaiah swallowed hard. If I can, then you have to admit you were wrong about me. Castellano stared at him. The entire hall waited. This is absurd, Castellano finally said. But Isaiah could hear uncertainty in his voice now. The maestro was calculating, weighing the risks, considering the optics. Think about it, Isaiah pressed. You have a hall full of wealthy donors. You're raising money for the homeless. What better demonstration of your cause than letting an actual homeless person show that they still have dignity, still have worth? He could see Castellano's jaw working, could practically hear the gears turning. The audience was watching, waiting. Phones were coming out. People were recording. This would be all over social media within minutes. Castellano's response here would define how this evening was remembered. If he refused, he'd look like a tyrant. Heartless. Everything his critics already accused him of being. If he agreed... Fine. The word came out like a knife. You want to humiliate yourself. You want the entire city of New York to witness your failure. Then please, be my guest. He gestured to the Steinway with mock gallantry. Play your heart out, Mr. Wright. Show us all this talent you claim to have. And when you fail, when you prove to be nothing but a con artist looking for attention, I will personally ensure charges are pressed. Isaiah's legs felt weak. What had he just done? Security guards stood on either side of the stage, ready to grab him at the first sign of trouble. Hammond had vacated the piano bench and stood off to the side, looking shocked and slightly offended. The orchestra members watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to contempt to, on a few faces, something that might have been hope. And in the audience, 3,000 pairs of eyes bored into him. Isaiah walked to the piano on shaking legs. The Steinway sat there gleaming and perfect under the stage lights. Up close, even with his poor vision, he could see how beautiful it was, how well maintained, how different from the broken upright in the abandoned church. He sat on the bench. It had been adjusted for Hammond's height and reach. Isaiah made a small adjustment, and even that simple mechanical sound, the bench mechanism clicking, felt portentous in the absolute silence of the hall. His hands hovered over the keys. They were trembling. God, they were trembling so badly. Everyone could see it. Getting cold feet, Castellano's voice dripped with disdain. Perhaps you're realizing that lying is easier than actually— Shut up! The words came out before Isaiah could stop them. Another gasp from the audience. No one told Maestro Castellano to shut up. No one. Isaiah closed his eyes. The trembling slowly stopped. In the darkness behind his eyelids, he could see Eleanor, could see Maya, could see the life he'd lost, and the music that had once made everything make sense. His hands found the keys, and Isaiah Wright began to play. The opening notes of Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2 emerged from the Steinway like a prayer, soft, tentative. Those famous opening chords that have been called some of the most recognizable sounds in classical music, simple, haunting building slowly from darkness. Isaiah's hands moved across the keys with a delicacy that belied their rough appearance. Each note was placed with perfect precision, perfect timing, perfect weight. The audience, which had been restless and skeptical, immediately quieted. Because something was different. Where Hammond had played the notes correctly but mechanically, Isaiah was telling a story. From the very first chord, you could hear it. This wasn't just music. This was a soul speaking. The melody began to build, gaining confidence, and Isaiah's hands moved faster, more surely. Even with his eyes closed, even with his vision fading, he knew exactly where every key was. This piece was in his bones, carved into his muscle memory so deeply that his body played it almost independent of conscious thought. But it wasn't automatic. Every note was intentional. Every phrase shaped with care. In the audience, people stopped checking their phones, stopped whispering, stopped moving entirely. On stage, the orchestra members who'd been prepared to laugh, prepared to see this homeless man fail spectacularly, found themselves leaning forward, instruments forgotten in their hands. And Castellano, standing at the conductor's podium, was frozen. The piano built to its first climax, Isaiah's hands flying across the keys, now the music swelling to fill every corner of Carnegie Hall. This was the moment where the concerto was supposed to transition, where the orchestra was supposed to come in supporting the piano with strings and brass and timpani. But Castellano hadn't given the cue. He was staring at Isaiah baton, hanging limply in his hand, face slack with shock. Isaiah played through the transition alone, covering both piano and orchestra parts. As best he could, his hands moving in patterns so complex it looked impossible that 10 fingers could create all those sounds simultaneously. And then, as the phrase resolved and moved into the next section, Castellano seemed to wake from his trance. His baton came up. He gave the cue. The orchestra came in, tentative at first, unsure, but then with growing confidence, as they realized that Isaiah's playing was solid, reliable, professional. No more than professional. Transcendent. The concerto moved into its second section, the mood shifting from introspective to agitated the piano, and orchestra engaging in a kind of musical dialogue. Here, Rachmaninoff had written passages of incredible technical difficulty, rapid arpeggios, octave runs, passages where the hands had to leap across the entire keyboard. Isaiah played them flawlessly. His hands were a blur. His body swayed with the music, feeling it, embodying it. Sweat began to form on his forehead, but his expression was peaceful, almost blissful. This was why he'd been born. This moment. This music. Everything else, the homelessness, the tragedy, the years of suffering, all of it fell away. There was only the piano and the sound and the story he was telling through Rachmaninoff's notes. In the audience, people were crying. Not everyone. But enough. Enough that the people sitting next to them noticed, pulled out tissues, felt their own eyes begin to burn. Because the music Isaiah was playing, it wasn't just beautiful. It was true. You could hear his loss in every phrase. You could hear the years of grief, the weight of carrying on when everything that mattered was gone. But you could also hear something else, a stubborn refusal to give up. A tiny spark of hope that refused to be extinguished. The music was saying what Isaiah could never put into words. I'm still here. I'm broken, but I'm still here. And I still have something to give. The first movement built to its conclusion, the piano and orchestra combining in a massive climax that shook the hall. Isaiah's hands hammered out the final chords with a power that seemed impossible for someone so worn down by life. The last note rang out. The hall fell silent, suspended in that magical moment between the end of the music and the beginning of applause. But no applause came, because this wasn't over. This was just the beginning. The concerto had 2 more movements, 20 more minutes of music, and the second movement, the adagio, was the heart of the piece, the soul, the part that would make or break everything. Isaiah's hands lifted from the keys. He took a breath, deep, steadying. Behind him, the orchestra waited. Castellano's baton was poised. And then Isaiah began the second movement. The second movement of Rachmaninoff's second piano concerto is by itself one of the most beloved pieces of music ever written. It's been used in movies and commercials and countless romantic moments. It's been played at weddings and funerals. People who know nothing about classical music know this melody. It's in the cultural DNA. But knowing it and experiencing it are 2 different things. Isaiah began so quietly that people in the back rows had to strain to hear. A simple melody, almost childlike in its innocence, emerging from the piano, like a memory of something beautiful and lost. The orchestra joined in strings playing so softly they were almost breathing rather than playing, providing a cushion of sound for the piano to float on. And Isaiah began to tell his story. Every note was weighted with meaning, every phrase shaped with exquisite care. The melody rose and fell, like breathing, like waves, like the rhythm of a heart that keeps beating even when it's broken. In his mind, he wasn't in Carnegie Hall anymore. He was in his Brooklyn brownstone playing this same piece, while Eleanor sat on the couch, eyes closed, one hand resting on her pregnant belly. Maya hadn't been born yet, but they could feel her moving, responding to the music. "She's going to love music," Eleanor had said. "How could she not with you as her father?" The melody built became more passionate, more urgent. The strings swelled around the piano, supporting it, lifting it higher. Isaiah's face was wet with tears now, but he didn't notice. His eyes were closed, and he was playing for Eleanor, for Maya, for everyone he'd ever loved and lost. The music was saying, "You're gone, but you're not forgotten. You're gone, but you still matter. You're gone, but the love remains." In the audience, hardened business executives were openly weeping. Social celebrities who'd come to be seen, not to feel, found themselves undone. The music was reaching into chests and finding the grief that everyone carries, because everyone has lost someone. Everyone has regrets. Everyone knows what it means to love something you can't keep. On stage, members of the orchestra were crying too. The first violinist had tears streaming down her face, but she kept playing, kept supporting Isaiah's piano with her instrument. The cellist, a young woman who reminded Isaiah painfully of Eleanor, had to stop for a moment, overcome, before finding her place again. And Castellano stood at the podium, conducting on autopilot, his face working through emotions he clearly wasn't used to displaying. Shock, awe, something that might have been shame. The second movement reached its emotional peak, a moment where the piano sings out over the orchestra, a cry of anguish and beauty combined. Isaiah played it with his whole body, his back arched, his hands pulling sounds from the piano that didn't seem possible. And then slowly, gently, the music began to quiet. The storm passed. The emotion softened. The melody returned to its simple, childlike quality, but changed now. Not innocent anymore. Wiser. Sadder. But somehow at peace. The last notes faded into silence. Several people in the audience were sobbing audibly. Others sat frozen, stunned. Castellano lowered his baton slowly, as if waking from a dream. He looked at Isaiah. Really looked at him for the first time. Not seeing a homeless man, or a disturbance, or an annoyance. Seeing a human being who had suffered and survived, and still had something beautiful to offer the world. Their eyes met. And in that moment, something passed between them. An understanding, a recognition. But the concerto wasn't over. The third movement remained the finale, the resolution. The part where darkness transforms into light, where grief gives way to joy, where the story finds its ending. Isaiah flexed his fingers, preparing. The third movement was fast, virtuosic, demanding most people's favorite part of the concerto because of its flash and brilliance. And Isaiah was about to play it better than it had ever been played in this hall. His hands came down on the keys, and the finale exploded into life. The third movement of Rachmaninoff's second is a celebration. After the introspection of the first movement and the heartbreak of the second, the finale is pure, unbridled joy. It's the sound of someone deciding to live again, to fight again, to believe again, despite everything. Isaiah attacked it with ferocity. His hands flew across the keyboard in patterns so fast they blurred. Octave runs that climbed and descended the entire range of the piano. Rapid-fire repeated notes that sounded like machine gun fire. Massive chords that made the instrument's entire frame vibrate. The orchestra struggled to keep up. This was faster than they'd rehearsed with Hammond. More aggressive. More alive. But they rose to the challenge. Castellano's conducting became more animated, more passionate, feeding off Isaiah's energy. The brass section began to play with a power they'd been holding back. The strings dug into their instruments, making them sing. It became a dialogue piano, and orchestra trading phrases, challenging each other, building together toward something transcendent. Isaiah was smiling now. Not a bitter smile, not a sad smile. A real, genuine smile of pure joy. This was what he'd been missing. This connection. This communication through music. This feeling of being part of something larger than himself. He wasn't playing alone. He was playing with these 90 musicians, all of them working together to create something that couldn't exist any other way. Something temporary and perfect and utterly human. The audience was on the edge of their seats now, literally leaning forward as if they could get closer to the music by physical proximity. The concerto built and built, getting faster, louder, more brilliant. Isaiah's hands were everywhere at once, and somehow, impossibly, he never missed a note, never faltered. never showed any sign of the 3 years he'd spent away from concert pianos. If anything, he was playing better than he ever had in his youth, because now he understood the music in a way he couldn't have before. Now he knew what it meant to lose everything and keep going anyway. Now he knew the full depth of what Rachmaninoff had been trying to express. The final section approached the coda, where everything comes together in a massive, triumphant conclusion. Isaiah and the orchestra together, now perfectly synchronized, building to the climax. Louder, faster, higher. The entire audience was standing, they couldn't help it. They'd been pulled to their feet by the sheer force of the music. The final chords approached. Isaiah's hands hammered down with everything he had, all the frustration, all the grief, all the determination to prove that he still mattered, transformed into sound. Crash, crash, crash. The final 3 chords rang out with a force that shook the building. The last note, a massive C major chord played by piano and full orchestra, simultaneously exploded through Carnegie Hall with the volume and power of a thunderclap. Isaiah's hands came down on the final chord and held it, letting it sustain, letting it fill every corner of the building, letting it fade naturally as 800 people stood in stunned silence. The sound died away. Isaiah slowly lifted his hands from the keys. He opened his eyes, though, with his poor vision he could barely make out the rows of faces before him. And then, nothing. Complete silence. Isaiah sat at the piano, hands in his lap, breathing hard. Sweat dripped down his face. His heart hammered in his chest. Had he failed? Had it not been good enough? The silence stretched on for 5 seconds. 10 seconds. 15. An eternity. Isaiah felt panic rising in his throat. This was it. This was the moment where Castellano would have him arrested, where he'd be physically dragged from the stage, where he'd be humiliated in front of thousands. And then someone started to clap. Slow at first. A single pair of hands somewhere in the audience. Then another person joined in. Then another. And then the entire hall erupted. The sound was deafening, 800 people applauding with everything they had. Not polite applause, not respectful recognition. This was a standing ovation that shook the building. Applause so loud it drowned out thought, so sustained, it seemed like it would never end. People were screaming, whistling, crying, and applauding at the same time. Bravo! Someone shouted, Bravo! The cry was taken up by others. Bravo! 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 Isaiah sat frozen, unable to process what was happening. On stage, the orchestra members were on their feet too, applauding musicians, applauding a fellow musician, the highest compliment possible. The first violinist was crying openly. The timpanist was shaking his head in disbelief. The French horn section was whistling. And Castellano. Maestro Vincent Castellano stood at his podium baton, still in his hand, staring at Isaiah with an expression that was impossible to read. The applause continued. 2 minutes. 3 minutes. People in the balconies were throwing flowers someone had brought roses, and they rained down onto the stage like red snow. Isaiah stood up from the piano bench on shaking legs. He tried to bow, but his knees nearly buckled. He had to grab the piano for support. A stagehand rushed out with a chair, helped him sit. Someone handed him a bottle of water. He drank it without tasting it. The applause went on and on. 4 minutes. 5 minutes. Finally, it began to quiet. People sat down, though many were still wiping their eyes, still trying to process what they'd just witnessed. Isaiah looked up to find Castellano standing in front of him. The maestro's face was pale. His eyes were red-rimmed. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Then Castellano did something Isaiah never expected. He extended his hand. Isaiah stared at it, not understanding at first. Then slowly he reached out and grasped it. Castellano pulled him to his feet. And then, in front of 3,000 witnesses, in front of cameras and phones, recording everything, Maestro Vincent Castellano, one of the most powerful and feared figures in classical music, did something he'd never done in his 40-year career. He apologized. "I was wrong." Castellano's voice was quiet, but the hall's acoustics carried it to every seat. He stopped, cleared his throat, tried again. "Mr. Wright, I judged you. I looked at your appearance, at your circumstances, and I decided you were worthless. I decided you had nothing to offer. I decided..." His voice cracked. "I decided that someone in your position couldn't possibly have talent or dignity or value, and I was completely, utterly, shamefully wrong." The audience was dead silent, hanging on every word. Isaiah found his own voice. "You didn't know I should have known. That's my job, to recognize talent, to nurture it, to celebrate it regardless of where it comes from. Instead, Castellano shook his head. "I've conducted orchestras in every major city in the world. I've worked with the greatest musicians of our time. And I just heard one of the finest performances of this concerto I've ever experienced, played by a man I tried to have arrested for touching a piano." He turned to address the full audience, now his voice stronger. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are here tonight ostensibly to raise money for homeless services. We attend these benefits. We write our checks. We feel good about ourselves for helping the less fortunate. But how many of us actually see the people we claim to help? How many of us look homeless individuals in the eye and recognize their humanity?" Murmurs of uncomfortable agreement rippled through the crowd. This man, Isaiah Wright, is not less than us because he lives on the streets. He is not less talented because he's poor. He is not less worthy because he's suffered. If anything, he's more than most of us could ever hope to be, because he's endured what would break most people, and he still has this. Castellano gestured to the piano, this gift to share with the world. He turned back to Isaiah. "I don't know your full story. I don't know what brought you to this point. But I know that what I just witnessed was a miracle. And I know that I owe you more than an apology. I owe you the recognition you deserve." Isaiah's vision was too blurred to see Castellano's face clearly, but he could hear the sincerity in his voice. "I have influence in this city," Castellano continued. "I have connections, resources. I would like to help you if you'll allow it. Not as charity, as an investment in someone who should be on stages like this, not sleeping under bridges." The audience erupted in applause again, but Isaiah was shaking his head. "I don't want your pity," he said quietly. "It's not pity." Castellano's voice was firm. "It's justice. It's giving credit where credit is due. You just gave the performance of a lifetime. Don't you think you deserve recognition for that?" Isaiah looked down at his hands, those scarred, calloused hands that had just pulled magic from a piano. Did he deserve it? For 3 years, he'd believed he deserved nothing, that he'd lost the right to music when he lost his family, that suffering was his punishment for some unknown sin. But standing on this stage in this moment, with the sound of applause still ringing in his ears, maybe he'd been wrong. Maybe surviving wasn't something to be ashamed of. Maybe playing music again wasn't a betrayal of Eleanor and Maya's memory. Maybe it was a way of honoring them. "I lost my family," Isaiah heard himself say. His voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper, but the hall's acoustics carried it. 15 years ago. A drunk driver. My wife and daughter. I lost them, and I lost myself. He looked up at the faces he could barely see, at the 3,000 people listening to his confession. I stopped playing because music reminded me of them. Every note, every piece, it was all connected to them. Playing felt like tearing open wounds that wouldn't heal, so I just stopped. Stopped everything. Let myself disappear. A woman in the front row was crying silently, but tonight Isaiah continued playing that concerto. I remembered why I fell in love with music in the first place. Not because it was a career or a way to be famous, because it's a way to communicate things that can't be said with words, to take pain and loss and somehow transform them into something beautiful. He turned to Castellano. You asked if I deserve recognition. I don't know. But I know I deserve another chance. Not to be who I was, that person is gone, but to be who I can be now. Castellano nodded slowly. Then that's what we'll give you. A chance. He raised his voice to address the full audience again. Ladies and gentlemen, I propose something. This benefit concert was supposed to raise funds for homeless services. Well, let's start with a specific goal, helping Isaiah Wright rebuild his life. I'm going to personally donate $10,000 to cover immediate needs, housing, clothing, medical care. But I want to challenge everyone in this room to match that. Let's turn this evening into something more than just another tax-deductible donation. Let's change one life completely and permanently. The response was immediate. 20,000 someone shouted from the audience. I'll add 15. Another voice called out. 25. Within minutes, people were standing up, shouting out donations, waving checkbooks. The benefit organizers, unprepared for this spontaneous outpouring, scrambled to take names and amounts. Isaiah stood watching, overwhelmed, as the total climbed. 50,000, 75,000, 100,000. It kept going. Someone in the balcony shouted, I run a residential program for formerly homeless individuals. We have a room available. It's yours, Mr. Wright, for as long as you need it. A woman stood up in the orchestra section. I own a piano store in Chelsea. If you need an instrument to practice on, I'm donating one. A real one, not some broken piece of junk. I'm a talent agent, a man called out. If you're looking for representation, I'd be honored to work with you. The offers kept coming. Housing, clothes, medical care, dental work, legal help, job opportunities, teaching positions, a free membership to a health club, meals at restaurants, even someone offering to pay for therapy sessions if he needed them. It was too much, too overwhelming. Isaiah felt his knees buckling again. This time it was Ruby, the young woman from the Steinway showroom, who caught him. She'd been in the audience the whole time. I told you, she whispered, smiling through her tears. I told you that you should come. The benefit concert that was supposed to end at 10 p.m. didn't actually conclude until nearly midnight. Nobody wanted to leave. People crowded around Isaiah, wanting to shake his hand, to hear his story, to be part of this moment. The benefit organizers had set up a table to process all the donations and offers of help. The total kept climbing. By the time they closed for the night, over $300,000 had been pledged to help Isaiah rebuild his life. Castellano stayed by Isaiah's side the entire time, running interference when people got too aggressive, making sure Isaiah had water and somewhere to sit when he got tired. You don't have to accept everything the Maestro said quietly during a brief lull. Some of these people are genuine, but others are just trying to be part of a viral story. Be selective. Isaiah nodded, too exhausted to speak. A journalist from the New York Times approached asking for an interview. A camera crew from a local news station was already editing footage to air on the 11 o'clock news. Someone's phone video of the performance was already going viral on social media. Within hours, it would have millions of views. But through all of it, Isaiah felt strangely disconnected. This was good. This was life-changing. This was more help than he could have imagined. But it wasn't why he'd come. He'd come to prove something to Castellano, yes, but more to himself. To prove that he still existed, that he still mattered, that the music was still inside him despite everything that had tried to destroy it. And he had proven it. The rest, the money, the offers, the attention, that was just noise. Around 11:30, as the crowd finally began to thin, Isaiah found himself alone on the stage for a moment. Everyone else was in the lobby, still chatting, still processing. He walked back to the Steinway. The piano sat there exactly as he'd left it. The bench was still adjusted to his height. A few of the flowers that had been thrown were scattered across the top of the instrument. Isaiah sat down and placed his hands on the keys one more time. He didn't play anything, just touched them. Felt the smooth ivory under his fingers, connected with the instrument in silence. You can come back, you know. Isaiah turned to find Castellano standing at the edge of the stage. Carnegie Hall, the Maestro continued. A proper concert. Your own program. Full promotional support. I can make it happen. I'm on the board. Isaiah considered this. A year ago, hell, a week ago, he would have thought such an offer was impossible. A fantasy. Now, I'd like that, he said quietly. But not yet. No, I need to remember how to live first. It's been a long time since I was a person, and not just someone trying to survive. I need to figure out who Isaiah Wright is now, not who he was before. Castellano nodded. Wise. Take your time. The offer stands whenever you're ready. He hesitated, then added, For what it's worth, I learned something tonight, too. About humility. About not judging. About a lot of things. I'd like to think I'm a better conductor, a better musician for having heard you play. You're a good conductor, Isaiah said. You were before tonight. But maybe, he smiled slightly, maybe now you're a good person too. Castellano laughed a real laugh, warm and genuine. Perhaps. We'll see. Isaiah Wright stood in front of the mirror in his new apartment, adjusting his bow tie. The apartment wasn't fancy, just a one-bedroom in a residential building in Queens that specialized in helping formerly homeless individuals transition to stable housing. But it had a bedroom and a kitchen, and a bathroom with hot water that ran whenever he wanted it. And in the living room, taking up most of the space, was the piano that woman from Chelsea had donated, a beautiful upright Yamaha that had been fully restored. He'd been living here for 3 months now. 3 months of slowly, carefully rebuilding a life. The donated money had helped with the basics: clothes, toiletries, a cell phone, a bed, kitchen supplies. The residential program helped with the transition, teaching him how to navigate systems he'd been outside of for 3 years, helping him apply for an ID and a bank account, connecting him with social services. But more than the material help, Isaiah had been working on himself. He'd started seeing a therapist twice a week, one of the offers that came out of that night at Carnegie Hall. They talked about grief, about trauma, about survivor's guilt, about the fact that losing everyone you love doesn't mean you have to destroy yourself too. It was hard. Some days he wanted to quit, to go back to the simplicity of just surviving. But he kept showing up. He'd also started playing regularly again. Not performing, not yet, but teaching. A community center in Brooklyn had offered him space to teach piano to kids from low-income families, kids who couldn't afford expensive lessons at prestigious music schools, kids who reminded him of himself at that age, full of raw talent and hunger, but with no resources. He taught them twice a week, and it was the best part of his new life. Watching their faces when they finally mastered a difficult passage, when they discovered they could make something beautiful with their own hands, it reminded him why music mattered. Tonight was different, though. Tonight, Isaiah was going back to Carnegie Hall. Not to perform, that would come later when he was ready. Tonight, he was attending a concert as a guest. Castellano had invited him to hear the orchestra perform Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, a piece about brotherhood and unity and the triumph of the human spirit over suffering. The invitation had come with a handwritten note. "Dear Isaiah, I would be honored if you would attend as my personal guest. I think you'll appreciate what we've done with the final movement." VC Isaiah checked his appearance one more time. He looked normal, healthy, clean, like a person who had somewhere to be and a reason to be there. He grabbed his coat, a nice one, donated by a clothing store owner who'd been in the audience that night, and headed out. The subway ride to Manhattan felt different now. He wasn't invisible anymore. People made eye contact, smiled, held doors open. It was disorienting and wonderful at the same time. At Carnegie Hall, he was greeted by an usher who recognized him immediately. "Mr. Wright. So glad you could make it. Maestro Castellano left instructions to bring you backstage before the performance. He wants to say hello." Isaiah followed the usher through the familiar corridors past dressing rooms and storage areas to the conductor's private room. Castellano was in his tuxedo reviewing sheet music, but he looked up immediately when Isaiah entered. "Isaiah, you came." He stood shaking Isaiah's hand warmly. "You look well." "How are things?" "Good," Isaiah said, and meant it. "Different, but good. I'm glad. Listen, I want to show you something." Castellano pulled out a program for tonight's concert. We're doing Beethoven's Ninth, as you know. But for the final movement, the Ode to Joy, we've made some changes to the program notes. He opened the program and showed Isaiah. There in the description of the final movement was a paragraph that read, "The Ode to Joy speaks to the universal brotherhood of mankind and the belief that all people, regardless of circumstance, deserve dignity and recognition." This performance is dedicated to Isaiah Wright, whose courage and talent reminded us that genius can be found anywhere, if only we have eyes to see it and hearts to hear it. Isaiah felt his throat tighten. "You didn't have to." "Yes, I did." Castellano's voice was firm. "That night 3 months ago changed everything for me. Changed how I see my role as a musician and as a human being. The least I can do is make sure people remember why." A knock on the door, the stage manager calling 5 minutes to curtain. Castellano grabbed his baton. "I need to go, but there's a seat reserved for you in the front row of the balcony. Best acoustics in the house. Enjoy the concert." As Isaiah turned to leave, Castellano added, "Oh, and Isaiah, start thinking about what you want to play when you do come back to perform. This is your hall too, always has been." Isaiah sat in his seat as the lights dimmed and the orchestra took the stage. He looked around the hall, the same hall where 3 months ago he'd stood as a homeless man and demanded a chance to prove his worth. The same hall where he'd played the performance of his life. The same hall where his life had begun again. Beethoven's Ninth Symphony began that iconic opening building from nothing, from silence, into something powerful and affirmative. As the music swelled around him, Isaiah closed his eyes and thought about Eleanor and Maya. He'd been so afraid that moving forward meant leaving them behind, that healing meant forgetting. But he understood now that wasn't true. They were still with him. In every note he played, in every student he taught, in every moment of beauty he chose to create instead of surrendering to darkness. Moving forward wasn't betrayal. It was honoring their memory by continuing to live. The symphony built toward its final movement, the Ode to Joy, the famous melody that every person in the hall would recognize, even if they'd never heard a classical concert before. And when the chorus stood to sing Schiller's words about brotherhood and unity and the divine spark that connects all humanity, Isaiah found himself singing along quietly, Alle Menschen werden Brüder. All people become brothers, even homeless men, even concert pianists, even arrogant maestros who learn humility, even people who think they have nothing left to offer the world. All brothers, all worthy, all deserving of dignity and second chances. The symphony concluded with a massive triumphant finish that brought the audience to its feet. Isaiah stood with them applauding not for himself this time, but for the music, for Beethoven's vision of a better world, for the possibility of redemption. After the concert, as people filed out into the cold New York night, Isaiah stood on the steps of Carnegie Hall. His phone buzzed a text from one of his piano students asking about their lesson tomorrow. He typed back a quick confirmation. He had somewhere to be, someone to teach, a purpose. The city stretched out before him, millions of lights, millions of stories, millions of people fighting their own battles. Isaiah had been invisible in this city for 3 years, but he wasn't invisible anymore. He was a musician, a teacher, a survivor, a person who'd learned that your circumstances don't define your worth, that talent doesn't disappear just because the world stops noticing it, that it's never too late to reclaim your voice. He started walking toward the subway but stopped when he heard someone call his name. Ruby, the young woman from the Steinway showroom, was running up slightly out of breath. "Mr. Wright, I hoped I'd catch you. Did you enjoy the performance?" "It was beautiful," Isaiah said honestly. "Good. Hey, I wanted to tell you I'm graduating from Manhattan School of Music next semester. I'm having a recital. Would you consider coming? And maybe if you're willing, could you play something? Just a short piece. It would mean everything to me to share a stage with you." Isaiah looked at this young woman who'd shown him kindness when he needed it most, who'd believed in him when no one else did. "I'd be honored," he said. Ruby beamed. "Really? Oh my God. Thank you. I'll send you the details. This is going to be amazing." She hurried off, already pulling out her phone to text someone the news. Isaiah watched her go, a small smile on his face. Then he descended into the subway and headed home to his apartment, his piano, his life. A life that had been broken and rebuilt. A life that was finally, after years of darkness, returning to the light. Sometimes the most beautiful music comes from the most broken places. Isaiah Wright's story is a reminder that talent, dignity, and worth are not determined by circumstances. That every person you pass on the street has a story, a history, a spark of something that makes them irreplaceable. We're surrounded by invisible people, individuals that society has decided don't matter, that we train ourselves not to see. But they're there, and they're worthy of recognition, of respect, of second chances. If this story moved you, consider supporting organizations in your community that help homeless individuals. Not with pity, but with genuine support, housing, job training, mental health services, and most importantly, dignity. Because you never know who you're walking past. You never know whose symphony is waiting to be heard. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more true stories of resilience, redemption, and the indomitable human spirit. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts. I'd love to hear what moved you most about Isaiah's journey. And remember, we all have music inside us. Don't let the world convince you otherwise. Until next time, keep listening, keep seeing, keep recognizing the extraordinary in the ordinary, because it's there, if only we pay attention.